Okay, so let me just kind of start by saying, and Jim Southard will really appreciate this. I grew up as an OA collector. I really was South Carolina OA and then branching out into some other lodges. But it was at a Dixie Fellowship back probably around 2008 that I hit a wall. I was trying to trade for a Bob Father, which was a flap from Bob White Lodge 87. And those little rascals would not give them up. And so I got so frustrated. I learned later I wasn't the only person that weekend who just kind of gave up trying to collect all of the brand new OA contrived rarities from the area. And so about that time, I finally sorted out boxes and boxes and boxes I had been accumulating for years of insignia, merit badges, ranks, as you'll see tonight, senior scouting stuff. And honestly, I had never, ever tried to sell, trade, or do anything with all of those items because I just simply didn't understand them. I didn't know what they were. I didn't know what the good ones were, what the common ones were, and I never wanted to sort of be taken advantage of. I had reference books sitting on the shelves, but I'd never really gone into that. And so I kind of decided that one way to kind of become knowledgeable about an area is to collect it, because then you're going to open up the guidebook, organize your collection, and kind of go from there. I also had the good fortune of just looking into a collection in Asheville, North Carolina, and this collection had a couple of real key pieces. It had a Ranger medal and a Type 1 Explorer silver medal, which you'll see here in a minute. And so having kind of some really good seed pieces there, I decided to go after it. Russell Smart really helped me out a lot. I called him and talked to him several times, and he had just purchased a collection that had duplicates. And so he was able to really kind of give me about 80% there as far as filling in lots of holes that I had. And then I've just been not recently, not in the last couple of years, but for a run there, I was really keeping an eye on my needs and picking up pieces. So I'd say today I probably have about 85% of what I would sort of want in a Senior Scout collection. There's lots of rabbit holes you guys can go down, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But I feel, I'm pretty close. I'm real happy with where I am. The picture that you guys see here on this opening slide, that's my collection. The two medals in the middle are the ones that I got from a guy in Asheville. The medal on the left, I have to thank Todd Rogers for. Todd was at a traderie. It might have even been the Indianapolis traderie. One of those popped up at the traderie. Some people who were normally coin dealers were at the traderie, and they had this. Through the phone, I had Todd hand his phone to them, and I was able to buy this and bring it home. And so that was kind of the crowning piece. That's one of the hardest pieces you'll have in a senior scouting collection. On the one on the left, the Air Scout Ace Medal. This is basically an overview, and I know John wanted me to keep it to 10 minutes. I apologize, John. It's going to be longer than 10 minutes, but not much longer. I'm going to keep it pretty tight. So for that reason, I'm not going to go deep into some of these topics. They're rabbit holes that you can research. And when I end the overview, I'm going to show you guys some of the books and resources that I've used, not only to collect, but also to get ready for this presentation. And it may encourage you to kind of go down that rabbit hole a little bit. So let me show you what I saw on eBay yesterday. This was on eBay Sunday, and I had it in my Scouting Hot Finds newsletter. And knowing that I was going to come on Monday night to do this presentation, I said, "Oh, I'm gonna grab that image," because what I love about this is, I asked this question, although I know you guys are muted. Do you know what these are? And I just have a feeling, because I was there too at one point, all of these look pretty much alike. Like there's just different little colors and borders, and there's a whole lot of the same design over and over and over. This sold for $150 yesterday, so there must be some good stuff in here. But hopefully during tonight's talk, you'll kind of learn a little bit about what this is. One thing I want to say too from the beginning, and having this up here is a good point, is that all of you can really understand the Senior Scouting program, because it really just begins with the simple idea of earning merit badges. And you'll see kind of in the early beginnings of it, the whole advancement program was just built around earning merit badges. And I'm sure almost all you guys are Eagle Scouts or spend some time in the program, so that's very, very familiar to you. So then it just kind of grows from there and keeps going. Let me also give one caveat before we kind of go down this overview, is that there's one term that you're going to hear which is going to become kind of confusing, and it is for Senior Scouting, and that is the term explorers. And so even in my little overview, the Explorer program changes like 3 different times during this 30 years. And then, of course, none of that even resembles the Explorer program that maybe some of you guys went through, maybe in the 1960s, depending on how old you are, 1970s, or even today's current Explorers program, which is more just purely vocational. So that word, the Boy Scouts have loved the term explorers for a program name, but it has changed a lot during the course of the history. So just kind of keep that in mind. All right, so let me just begin by giving a huge shout out to two guys who really kind of helped me. I only spoke to Jim Clough one time, but he wrote a great book in 1995. I'll show you guys a copy of it when we're done here. That was a great resource for me. It's kind of the Bible for collecting senior scouting. When he was alive, I purchased a copy of his book in color. And so what I've done tonight is I've used some of the images from his book because they're just the perfect examples of what I want to show you guys. The other person I really want to thank is Russell Smart. He authored an ISCA journal article. Shout out to ISCA there. June 2002. And this, he kind of did it with Jim Clough, but I know Russell basically did the writing. That was kind of my cheat sheet for this overview. It's a great overview if you want to go read it. It has great pictures as well. So just, that's free on the ISCA website. If you just go to the June 2002 issue, you can pull that up. And then the last thing I want you to sort of understand about this big umbrella of senior scouting is it was always meant to function alongside traditional scouting. It was never really meant to replace it. All of these versions of senior scouting included a pathway where a senior scout or an explorer or an air scout, whatever, could earn star, life, and of course eagle simultaneously. And so they were always meant to be supportive, not replacing the regular scouting program. So tonight we'll kind of look at senior scouting, which starts in the mid-30s. Of course, air scouts, which might be a little more of the sexy one that everybody gets excited about. And then also over here, exploring as well. Here's some things we're not going to talk about. This is sort of the caveat that Jim Clough has and also Russell has in their writings. We're not going to talk about Sea Scouts. Thankfully, there are some people interested in Sea Scouts, but we're just not. It's been around a lot longer. 1912, I think. So that's a whole nother. Somebody else can do that presentation. We're also not going to talk about Rover Scouts and some of the other unsuccessful programs, such as Alumni Scouts and other things that the Boy Scouts had. When they kind of rolled out this idea of senior scouting, they had about 10 or a dozen ideas, one of which was Order of the Arrow, by the way, that were kind of senior scouting type things. Not all of those really ever got off the ground. Another one that's kind of interesting that we're not going to cover tonight because it's a simple overview is Emergency Service Corps programs. And I bet a lot of you guys have got memorabilia from that, those cool patches and stuff on there. Let me also say this is sort of a caveat. The years that I'm going to use are basically approximations. Sometimes there were changes that happened mid-year. So if I said something had happened in 1949 and you always thought it happened in 1950, well, you might be right and I might be wrong, or maybe it happened in September. Who knows? So don't quote me on that. And I'm also going to ignore the collar pins and all that kind of stuff because again, some of this you can keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. You can be like Terry Grove and you're writing people letters to get copies of their Eagle letters because you want to have signatures. You could just go down the rabbit holes, and we're not going to go that deep in an overview. So all right, so here's kind of where it gets started. It's 1935. The Boy Scouts, basically it's during the Great Depression. And you have all of this sort of lost generation of scouts where the things are really tough, and they want to have a program that really appeals to older scouts. And that's where this whole idea is born out of. Russell Smart actually shared with me a really neat piece, which is a paper written by the Boy Scouts of America sent out to councils where they're actually talking about this whole concept of how you would get this started in your local council. But essentially, this is kind of what it looked like. It's designed for scouts that are 15 and older. And originally, it's kind of designed to exist within a troop. And so you would have, and you guys probably recognize this, the idea of having an older boy patrol in your troop is something that's been around for a long, long time. And so what they tried to suggest here is that you would have a separate program, and then this strip here, this uniform strip, Senior Scout, would go on your uniform and replace the strip that said Boy Scouts of America. And in that simple way, it would come a little bit of a sense of pride for the older scouts. There were, right at this initial launch, there was kind of two tracks here. One was just simply being called a Senior Scout, and the other was called Explorers. And the way that all of the paperwork kind of described it is that the Explorers were land brothers to Sea Scouting. So whereas Sea Scouting was 100% on the water and everything with their advancement was on the water, the Explorer Scouts, their whole program would be focused on outdoor skills. And we'll see how that develops here in just a second. So it's kind of interesting in the beginning. Scouts could be Senior Scouts, or you could be in an explorer post like we would recognize, or an outfit. That was kind of your choice there, okay? And at this time, they had not rolled out the dark green sage shirt that we recognize with explorers, and so that's why all of these are kind of like the tan color, which they were designed to go on the shirt of that era. So here's just kind of a sample of Explorer Scout insignia. You can see that during this time, the Explorer Scouts have this very interesting design or logo. It's a fleur-de-lis superimposed over a compass point. And again, I think a lot of you guys probably have patches like this in your collection. You might be interested to learn that, that's all pre-1950. It's pretty old. It's kind of the first version of Explorers. And a lot of this is just going to be position patches, honestly. But again, you can see the strips on the left where you would, again, take off the Boy Scouts of America strip and you would replace it with Explorer Scout. That was the first year it said Explorer Scout. And then right after that, they changed it to Explorer Scouts. And then over here, we have some position patches. You can recognize things like Secretary and things like that. So this is kind of that first wave of Explorer Scout insignia. Then in 1945, the BSA created something called a Senior Scout outfit. So essentially at this point, you have three different flavors in 1945. You have Explorers, you have Air Scouts, which we'll get to in just a minute, and you have Sea Scouts. And the idea was that maybe your chartered organization didn't have enough interest to form an Air Scout squadron or an Explorer post or a Sea Scout ship. So you could create kind of this hybrid unit that would be called a Senior Scout outfit. And within that unit, you could have different patrols. One patrol might be more of the Sea Scout patrol, and one patrol might be more of the Air Scout patrol. So this only lasted for about 5 years. So the Senior Scout outfit doesn't make a big mark on scouting. But what it does bring us is this really cool design that I'm sure all of you have seen. We call this the CAW, C-A-W, Compass, Anchor, and Wings. And this comes out of that period of time. And again, all you're going to see from here is position patches. Interestingly, they're all on blue, which is kind of a different color, dark blue. Almost like a Cub Scout blue you would recognize. And so this is going to be this way. That blue, by the way, is going to be the color that's used until 1954. So up to 1954, we're going to see this. Another thing I want to make sure I point out is that many of the position patches during this 30 years are kind of recycled. And what I mean by that is in Clough's example here, you can see that Senior Scout outfit, the universal blue on the far left here, the round one, that is also used in a later Explorer program. They kind of reuse the insignia. And so just kind of keep that in mind that there's some overlap there. For my personal collection, I have it organized where I have a Senior Scout outfit collection. And then for my Explorer collection, I have to have some of the exact same patches because there's overlap. But that's just me being anal. Don't ever feel like you have to collect like anybody else does. Okay, earlier when I started, I mentioned that everything is kind of based on the idea of merit badges during this time. And so that is called Senior Scout titles. These are very interesting. There's 17 different ones, and they're basically focused on a group of merit badges. And so, for example, Scout Airmen would be focused on a group of, I think mostly there was like a group of 5 merit badges. And if you earned those 5 merit badges and did a couple of extra things, then you could earn the Senior Scout title. And so if I was to go back, this Senior Scout patch would actually be, you could actually put the segments around it. This would have been for the Explorer Scout, and then in a minute you'll also see one for Sea Scouts. But these are tiny little segments. Now here's the interesting thing. Some of you, Jim Southard, guys who've been around a little while, you have probably had these from time to time, and because there's no text on it, you might have known what you have. But I can tell you a couple of these are really darn hard to get. That Scout Airman right there is really hard to get. A couple of these I don't have, and I've been looking for them for a while. So just kind of, this is kind of eye-opening for you guys. This was not really considered an advancement program. The verbiage they used, it said to encourage the Senior Scout in his service and progress, but it was not considered to really be a rank. And again, that kind of goes back to maybe the idea that it's really just an add-on to try to keep the older Scouts interested. It's not a replacement program to do away with what they were doing in the troop. So all of this is based on earning merit badges. Then you'll see here that in the 1940s, later on, when they do change to that that green uniform. Some of the Senior Scout titles are issued in a dark green twill background, and there's only a few of those. I think the 5 that are pictured here are the 5 known examples. So of the 17, we only have those, and the Scout Airman is only ever in that blue. It's not in any other color. This is from my collection. I've added 1 or 2 more since then I took this picture, but you can see here again these dark green ones again, and here's the Air Scout Airman. And then they did have, again, Sea Scouts. So this is maybe something that people aren't as familiar with, but, Sea Scouts was part of the Senior Scout program. And since the Senior Scout titles were kind of the add-on piece, a Sea Scout could have earned merit badges and qualified for these titles. I have a lot of needs. These aren't easy to find. So again, maybe this is eye-opening for a few of you if you've seen some of these little dark blue segments here. I believe of the 17 titles, I think most of them were issued in the Sea Scout blue, and that'll be in Clough's book as well. Now, this is kind of an oddball here. This is the advancement program that they had for Scout Explorers. Again, this first version of that term Explorers that we have in Scouting. This was outlined in the Adventure for Senior Scouts, which was a book. Active Explorer Scouts who became proficient in a vocational area throughout the study of merit badges and earning of appropriate Senior Scout titles could also then earn first or second honor bars. And so if you're looking here at the top, these two are basically the rank advancement, Explorer First Honors and Explorer Second Honors. And you'll notice they're on the tan. So this is for the old tan shirt. This is before they had the spruce green. Then here comes your combo ranks. Then if you were a patrol leader, you also could have Explorer Patrol Leader with First Honors, Patrol Leader with Second Honors. So again, these might be patches that some of you have run into, but since they have no text and they almost look like an army patch or something, you may have had no idea what these were, but these are from that, sort of 1938 to 44 time period. You don't really find many of these. These are kind of hard to find. They don't seem to stick around too well. All right, this one kind of will get everybody a little excited. The Ranger Award. Everyone's kind of heard of this. And so I have this a little out of order because honestly, Air Scouts starts in 1942, but just since I'm running with Explorers, I'm going to stick with the Ranger. So the Air Scouts have, and also the Sea Scouts have a 4-step advancement program. And so previously when I was showing you this guy, you can see this maybe isn't very inspiring for Explorer Scouts. I don't know that any Explorers really got hot and bothered maybe about, getting Explorer Second Honors. They, taking sort of a cue again from Air Scouts, they came out with this idea of having a 4-step advancement program going from apprentice to woodsman to frontiersman and then Explorer Scout Ranger. And all of this was basically all focused on outdoor skills. I mean, this is very, very heavily focused on outdoor skills. And again, this was a true advancement program that Explorer Scouts could have done during that time period. Now, I included a picture here for you guys from a sash in my collection. Actually got this from Gary in Charleston about a year ago. I think I gave him like $500 or something. But what I really, really liked about this sash is, and why I included in this presentation is, I want you to make sure you understand that all of this runs alongside your normal scout troop. So in this case, the guy who was an Eagle Scout who got his guide in country also was an explorer who earned his Ranger Award. And so I just really, when I saw that, I was like, boom, I got to have it. So this Ranger Award, as many of you know, is going to come back when Venturing rolls out in 1998. And honestly, it's one of the only pieces of this that's still around. They've actually gotten rid of the Silver Award that also came back with the Venturing program, but you can still earn Ranger. In fact, there's a female Scouts BSA girl in my unit who's also with a Sea Scout ship, and she has either earned her Ranger or she's very close to earning it. So that's kind of an iconic piece right there, if you ask me. All right, here's the fun one, Air Scouts. So, basically 1942, you have this explosion of interest, and what they used in the Air Scout manual, they said that this manual spoke to the young men of this air age. And I can only imagine what life would have been like during that time with the war going on and everyone working towards the common goal of building airplanes and everything else to defeat the Nazis and the Japanese. And so the Boy Scouts very quickly, this sort of came about within just maybe a year, launched this Air Scout program. And so I'll kind of go into a little bit of depth on this one because this is the one most people are interested in. One thing you may or may not know is that there's kind of two components to this. One component is really aimed at scouts under the age of 15, and then the other is aimed at scouts who, of course, are more, the Air Scouts who are 15 and older. So I have these included from Clough's book. You have here the Tenderfoot Air Scout candidate, the second class Air Scout candidate, and the first class Air Scout candidate. And how you would earn these was by earning these merit badges. With this rollout, they have 4 different merit badges that are brand new that have this blue, this is the icon, everybody sees these on sashes, they get excited, have these blue borders, and those are aeronautics, aerodynamics, airplane design, and airplane structure. And so a scout, when they're 12, 13, 14, they could earn these and wear these patches on their regular tan uniform in anticipation of then crossing over into an Air Scout squadron when they turn 15. Of course, we know the community strips. That's another great rabbit hole that you can go down. And I know some people really go after these community strips, and also the state strips are very tough to get as well. So you got to have some of the books if you're really going to get into this. This is my beat up copy of the Air Scout manual that I like to read and kind of go through and find stuff. This is the 1942 version, and in that manual kind of has the original program. And then, of course, these are the 4 merit badges. These are the merit badge books. And so again, to me, the whole program originally is kind of built around these 4 merit badges. In order to do the advancement, you kind of had to earn these merit badges, and that was a big deal. So here are the 4 rank advancements in this program starting off from about 1942 to 46. These are very familiar. I'm sure some of you have these, or some of you have seen them. Apprentice is like your very beginner one. That name Apprentice is going to be used over and over in senior scouting. Then it goes to Observer, Craftsman, and Air Scout Ace. And of course, the number of props kind of covers that as well. It says Air Scout. So then we have the Air Scout Ace medal. Now, in the information I read from Russell seemed to suggest that it wasn't until 1946 that they rolled out having a medal. It didn't seem like at first in 1942, 43, 44, maybe even 45, they actually had a medal. But anyways, that's the research he had. So this is the Type 1 medal with the wider blue ribbon. The actual medal part here, I guess the charm or whatever you call it, that's the same in Types 1 and Type 2, but Type 1 has the wide blue ribbon. And those are very, very rare. You probably have seen them come and go on eBay. They usually go for 5 figures. This isn't like a prices realized show, but I'm just telling you that's a real tough piece. And so the Air Scout Ace medal completely was basically used through 1954. So from about 42 to 54, you could have earned the Air Scout Ace medal. But as I mentioned here, less than 1,000 were ever earned. If you were to compare how many requirements a scout had to complete to get Air Scout Ace versus, say, maybe Eagle or later Silver Award, it was just multiple times harder to earn your Air Scout Ace. It was very, very tough. And so very few of those were awarded. This is a really iconic piece there right there. Okay, this is something I did not understand until I did my research tonight. I knew these existed, but I didn't really know when this happened. But it was in 1946, reading through Russell's article, he spells it out. This is the idea of rating strips. So before, everything was kind of based on those merit badges and kind of going from apprentice to craftsman, etc. With this idea of rating strips, what happens is it really broadens out the requirements so that a scout can really just kind of focus on something they are really interested in. They don't have to do everything. So for example, in order to become the different ranks such as craftsman or observer, you could pick which one of these you would like to go into, whether it was the observer or whether it was the craftsman or the builder, which would be normally building models, or the navigator or outdoorsman or communicator, which would of course be more radio and stuff. And so each of these rating strips had 3 versions. There was as you can see here, the specialist rating of the observer, the craftsman, and the ace. And the ace has the 2 things right here. So all together, that's a pretty impressive collection. I don't have all those. That's pretty tough to get. But this was kind of that 1946 to 54 period. And for some of you who might be a little more, you might know of the Explorer rating strips that are going to come later. That was born out of this Air Scout program, the Air Scout strips, okay? Then, of course, we have all kinds of position patches. And again, maybe you guys have seen these before. An Air Scout troop was called a squadron, and an Air Scout patrol was called a flight. flight. And so you're going to have different position patches. The ones over here with the blue box, I think those are kind of the super rare, like nobody really knows how that happened, error patches. And those are the ones that you see everybody post about that they don't have, they need. So anyways, those are the impossible ones. But just keep your eyes over here on the left-hand side. Those are the ones that you can actually find. More Air Scout insignia. Again, you can keep going down the rabbit hole. These patches on the left are some adult patches. The squadron leader, the assistant squadron leader would be like your scoutmaster, assistant scoutmaster. This powder blue scribe patch. You could get the troop numerals, and there's all kinds of really cool squadron patches and stuff. So you can kind of keep going down that rabbit hole. All right, so in 1949, 1950, pick your date, the BSA decides to revamp the entire Senior Scout Advancement Program, and they basically roll everything into what you would call exploring, what we would kind of recognize as exploring. So Air Scouts becomes Air Exploring, Sea Scouts becomes Sea Scout Exploring, and then you just have regular exploring, which is more focused on this broad range of things. And so what they're trying to do here is they're trying to make it much more, I guess, to aim it at the interests of the scouts. And as I kind of show you the advancement program, you'll see there's a lot of different varieties here. But basically what's going to happen is that's familiar 4-step process. So apprentice, bronze, gold, and then silver is going to be the highest award. And so in the picture here, you can see that there's a blue background version. And then in 1953, they go to the red background version. And then 1954 is when they come out with this iconic silver award patch that has the bird. And then down here on the medals, I want to point out that the two on the left are really kind of prototypes. Nobody really considers those to be regular issue that you would have to have in your collection. But the third one is the silver award from that time period. And then in 1954, they switched to this design. So this is typically called a Type 1 silver medal. And then this Type 2 is much more common. You'll see a lot more of those. Here's the rating system that was very broad. Again, so what would happen here, in order for you to earn your bronze award, you would have to get any 2 of the 9 rating strips. And it was a pretty clean cut deal. The rating strips had 10 different projects that you could work on. And you had to complete 8 out of the 10 in order to get one of the rating strips. Once you completed any 2 of these, and again, it's your interest. If you're more into physical fitness or you're more interested in emergency skills, that's fine. Earn 2 strips, you would earn your bronze. Earn an additional 1, so 3 of total, and you'd have your gold. And if you earned any 4 of these 9 rating strips, then you would have your silver award. So there wasn't kind of like an Eagle Scout project or thing like that. But some of these were pretty tough. Of the 10, I'll give you an example. In communications, in that skill rating, one of the 10 projects you could do is pass your license to be a ham radio operator. So that was no chump change. In the seamanship rating, one of the 10 projects you could do would be to build your own canoe or kayak. And I've never tried to do that before, but that seems pretty tough. So these weren't necessarily super easy. So it was not easy to get the silver award, but certainly there were a lot more scouts that earned the silver award than did the Air Scout. I found these in a little pamphlet, and I love these little drawings that the Boy Scouts do to help you understand things. And so I wanted to just pop this in here and show you guys that, this is kind of how it worked, explaining the rating. So you would come in as an explorer, you would qualify as an apprentice, which is basically just that beginner's level. And then you would qualify for 2 ratings, would get you your gold, 3 for the silver. I'm going to get this right, bronze, gold, and silver. They also had some simple things in here: participate in a service activity, an outdoor activity, a social thing. And again, as I said earlier, 8 out of the 10 projects, and here's all the little logos. So I just love when the Boy Scouts have these little drawings. I've got a couple more here to show you. This one shows you how this whole program worked when you blended in Air Scouting and Sea Scouting. So again, apprentice is kind of the generic first rank for all of these. Then in the traditional Explorer post, you have the Bronze Award, Ordinary and Observer, Gold, Able, Craftsman, and of course at least the Ace, Quartermaster, and Silver. And you can see again down here, this Air Scout, you have these ratings right here just for the Air Scout. So I thought that was a really cool drawing. And the last one I want to show you guys, and again, this is just something I want you to remember all throughout this, is all throughout the Senior Scouting program, it always was tied back to the troop. So you always have the opportunity to continue and earn Eagle, no matter whether you were an Explorer or an Air Scout or whether you were a Sea Scout. And so this kind of shows you that path that you could kind of go through here and then still earn your Star, your Life, and your Eagle. Typically Star, Life, and Eagle are earned by doing merit badges, showing leadership, and then in the case of the Eagle, there'd be a project. All of that was still applicable. The Air Scouts could earn merit badges if they chose to. Same thing with Sea Scouts, etc. So that's just kind of interesting to kind of kind of keep in mind. Here's a little interesting one that we're getting towards the end here. So there are 3 examples of Air Scout patches that don't have any wording. Now, in the Clough book, he doesn't really peg a date to them, but I have another resource from Art Hyman, who's passed away, and he attributes them to this period of 1946 to 49, where we have the rating strips. I don't know which is correct, but I'm just showing you them and letting you know about that. And then there is no 4-prop, like an ACE patch known to exist that doesn't have the writing on it. So when Air Scouts becomes Air Exploring, things still look very similar. All of these just turn over to having the word Air Explorer added in. Now, I have here 1965. You're going to see in a second that this program kind of winds down in 1958, 59. But Air Exploring actually does continue by itself until 1965. That's when its advancement program ends. So that's why I chose that year for the overview tonight. And then over here, you can see again, some of these look very similar from that earlier time period of Air Scouts, but then some are a little bit different. So we can kind of tell that some of these are unique, and in some of them you can see that in Clough's book he has Air Scout, this was number 9, and then he has them numbered, so you can kind of see that one right there. And then an end of an era. So most likely, unless some of you really are a little long in the tooth, you never would have had the chance to earn Silver Award, because that ended in January of 1959, unless you were getting some kind of a carryover. So basically, and you can kind of look at the handbooks here. There's a handbook, an Explorer handbook that kind of has a picture of like a landscape with like a house and a farm. That's kind of the beginning of a new model for explorers that doesn't have any advancement program that we would recognize. And so this is the end of Silver and all that stuff. Air Explorers again continued to 1965, and then there is in 1998, as you know, kind of a rebirth of all this where they bring back those iconic awards, and that is also not really gone really super well. I want to close with this, which is to me super fun. If you get into collecting Senior Scout stuff, you can go down whatever rabbit hole you want. This is a real fun one, is to collect what I would call event patches. There's a lot of really cool Explorer conferences that happened in North Carolina, and I've got a pretty good collection of these. But these things happen all over the country. I mean, this doesn't just end in 1958. But there's all kinds of really cool air encampments, Sea Scout regattas, different vocational conferences. These just happen to be at different colleges and universities. But this is a really fun, kind of never-ending collection that you can just kind of keep going with, and I have a lot of fun with that. Jim Clough, this is the book. It's a 3-ring binder deal. You can see that. This is the article from the Misc Journal with Russell Smart, 2002 in June. And then if you want to, there's all kinds of cool stuff. Art Hyman wrote a book about Air Scouts. A lot of this stuff's out of print. You really can't find it, but you can be on the lookout for it. Here's a really cool thing he wrote about Air Scouts. This guy named Dave Sullivan, never met him, never heard of him before. He wrote a book too that's mostly, it's not a book, it's just a picture book that just has all the patches with not much background. But again, you can go to the old manuals if you want to kind of learn more about the advancement programs. Just find these old manuals. Some of you probably have these books just sitting around. But like, for example, in this Explorer manual that some of you probably have, if you turn to the back, it explains the Explorer ratings and how it shows you those projects that you'd have to do. So there's all kinds of cool literature. Again, if you want to kind of go down the rabbit hole with Air Scouts and stuff. The thing I liked about it, and it goes back to what I said earlier, is that there really isn't contrived rarities. You know, it's not like there's a first flap that, they cut them in half or what, that kind of crazy stuff. These were all things that Scouts earned, and it was in a book and a manual. Everybody could have done it. Some of them were really, really hard, and that's why they're hard to find today, and it happened a long time ago. But to me, that's more genuine. It's more, I sort of call it like, classic scouting, like, in terms of going from being a kid who collected OA only in my area to collecting kind of a big, broad topic in scouting, like merit badges with Johnny and Larry and other people. It's something every scout. Well, one of the things I read is in 1950, one of these pamphlets said every scout that turned 14 years old in 1950 was an explorer, and so, that was for all those scouts, that was a part of their thing. Now, whether or not they did the advancement program, probably a lot of them didn't, but it was there.